Hello, everyone. We are live. My name is Danny Faith Leonard. I'm one of the producers of Coast, and we are about to start our panel hosted by MovieMaker Magazine, and then we will. I'm sorry. Can everyone who's on the stream hear me? Please nod if you can hear me. Okay, great. So as soon as I hear from someone on our team that we are in fact live, I will let everyone else in the room. But first, I have just a little bit of business to cover. After this stream ends, whether you are watching live right now or you are watching on YouTube later or wherever this is hosted, please go watch Coast after you watch this panel. You can visit our website, coastthefeature.com, and on the homepage, we have all of the screening links of all of the platforms that we are available on. So I am going to get things started and introduce our panel. First of all, the panel today is being led by Tim Malloy, who's the editor at MovieMaker.com. We have our directors, Jessica Hester and Derek Schweikart. We have the lead actress who plays the role of Abby, Fatima Patacek, and Mia Frampton, who plays Christy, everyone's favorite bad girl in the film. And once again, my name is Danny Faith Leonard. I'm one of the producers of Coast. And we are going to have a couple of other actors who are possibly joining us a little later. But Tim, I will throw it to you.
Thank you so much, Danny. I think you did an amazing job producing this movie. I think Jessica and Derek did an amazing job of directing it, but I've gotten to tell you guys all that before. I haven't told your actors how good I thought they were, and I thought you guys just killed it. Just really beautifully done. You grabbed people from the very beginning, like the very first scene of this movie. And so I guess I just wanted to ask everyone, how did you find each other? How did Jessica and Derek and Danny find this team? And Fatima and Mia, why did you want to do the movie?
Where should we start?
I feel like Jess and Derek should go because
Yeah, I feel like we found Fatima first.
Yeah.
We were searching like crazy for the perfect Abby for the film. Audition after audition, and then Derek discovered this short film Curfew.
Well, no, I'd seen Curfew in Austin at a Academy Shorts festival thing, and then I loved it. And then that was a few years before, and then I saw, oh my God, Before I Disappear. Did I get that right?
I didn't watch that. I watched it.
No, but I was watching that on Netflix. I'm like, I feel like I know this story, this girl. And then I looked it up and I realized, oh my God, this is the short film again. And then I that was when I first saw Fatima again, and I brought that to you. And then you watched Curfew, and you're like, oh, okay.
I mean, I literally watched because I was so tired, and he put it on, and I was like, oh, there's Abby. And then I was like, okay, good night.
And then we hunted her down, and we figured out who her agent was, and we called and did the thing and asked her to meet with us. And when she first came to audition, we were 14, I think, at the time still, and we had sort of shifted that we're just going to cast the teenagers that are perfect for this because it's all about them, And she worked us so good in that. She was so persuasive in her audition, and I'm like, if she can do that to us, like she's gonna have an effect on an audience. Is remember what I left thinking. And
I was like, Derek, we're gonna have to get smarter.
Yeah, we're gonna have to work hard because she's already smarter than us.
We have to get ahead of her.
Yeah.
What did you do? How did you win them over?
I don't know. It's actually funny because I feel like they worked me. Like they really, really like there was not a single part of the auditioning process that I felt like was traditional. It's very non-traditional in every sense of it. But that's kind of part of the answer to my question about why this film. Really, everything about this film was a little bit different than anything I'd ever seen before. Like a script where young women were being celebrated, but also like a spotlight on them where they could honestly discover and struggle and like come out triumphant or not, or like challenging what that idea of triumphant for a woman is. It was just really cool that all these things are being reconciled, and then having a 2 director team, like that's a very different dynamic than, you know, having a single director. And it's easy to feel like really intimidated by it, but they actually are just like this really beautiful balancing act. But it requires like 2 parts of your brain, because like Derek's approach is very different than Jess's. So Jess will be like, just feel it, like just feel it inside, you know, it's there. And then Derek will be a lot more specific and be like, okay, so I want you to think about this specific scenario with this and that or whatever, and kind of like, you know, and then you're like, okay, so wait, which one? Okay. And then you channel both of them, and it really ends up working out. Like we find a sweet spot between what they're like envisioning and then also like what we had to bring to the table. It's a really long answer, but
one more thing about Fatima is that we saw so many girls, and she's a woman. I can't even say girl anymore, but she showed up so present in the material, and I felt that was very rare. Everyone, I mean, you could see them thinking, hitting their marks, and it's like with her, you could throw anything at her, and she stayed alive and present in the material. For us, that was so important.
And Mia, how did you get involved? You're really your character is kind of the instigator of everything.
Yeah.
It looks fun to play.
Yes, it was fun. I mean, when I got the audition, I didn't even know really what I was going to be doing. And then when I got there, I was like putting on, you know, and my character's clothes, and we were improvising and playing musical chairs and just doing a bunch of different things that that was not what I had come to know in an audition. Usually auditions are very stressful and just kind of all the same. You go in the waiting room, you get really nervous, then you go in, and then you come out and you're like, okay, that was fun, great. But they were just super collaborative, Jess and Derek. And also, this was, I'm almost positive, the first time that I got to work with a female director. I think I had one director on a show I was on that was but just for one episode for a TV show. So it wasn't very like, and I think I only had one scene in that episode. So this was my first time to just really work with someone of my same gender who understood me and wanted to create the most authentic character possible. Because Christy is the instigator for sure, but she's also a lot of other things, and we wanted to get that across as well.
Yeah, I'd love for both of the female actors to answer this. How is it different having a female director?
I mean, it's just, you know, you feel like you have someone on your side. Also, it's a female-driven movie with, you know, Abby and Fatima and Christella, but it's also just, you know, you're being very vulnerable, and I think any woman, girl, can relate to some aspect of this movie, not feeling like they belong, you know, wanting to escape. So like I said, you're just very vulnerable. So having Jess on our side as we went to these sort of places was great. And I mean, she's just a warm person in general. So when you're doing night shoot on night shoot, it's nice to have someone on your side as well. But Derek, you know, we love you as well.
I feel like he's softer than I am.
I mean, sometimes, but it's still, you know, you get the soft and the sweet, as the tough and the sweet.
Yeah, I think also it created a space for dialogue, and I don't want to say that it's solely based off of the fact that we had a female director, but I think that helped, and the fact that we had both a female and a male director, it just like kind of created this really easy, vulnerable minimum trio, right? Like either it was just me and them two, or when it was more of us in the scene, then, you know, like, but a minimum of 3 people in a conversation like immediately changes the dynamics and like lowers the stakes in terms of when you're talking about what the outcome is going to be. And yeah, it also like contributes so much more perspective. So when you're thinking about like, am I in the right place for my character? Am I in the right headspace? A lot of the times you get locked into the same patterns and same routines because you've thought about it from the same perspective for so many, you know, practices or tries or run throughs in your head, or even like takes. So having more than one perspective, but having one of them be a fellow female, I think that was like the sweet spot that I often found. Especially when I was struggling, when I like was hitting a roadblock where I felt like I have said this the same way like 5 times and I've tried to do something different and I don't know why it's not coming out differently, but I'm so frustrated at myself even. And they'd turn around and be like, hey, it's okay, like maybe try this, maybe try that, and immediately it's like, okay, now I have at least 2 other options to go with. So yeah.
Hey, welcome Eduardo, who has the best poster in the background.
Eduardo,
How are you doing?
we can't hear you.
Well, I'll give them time to unmute. But this movie is so much about music, and particularly what I guess I would call post-punk music. I don't really know how to define it, but it's such a huge part of the film. I wonder if you all could just talk about your relationship with music, what you listen to, whether you had to stretch to get into this type of music for the film, or whether it was just really natural to you. You know, like if somebody's like a total hip hop head who then had to like sort of, you know, transition to, I'm going to call it punk, I guess punk. And maybe we can start with Eduardo because we haven't gotten to hear from him. Although your character obviously is a teacher, and teachers are nerds and don't know about music.
No, I actually, well, everyone here knows that I'm a rock and roll guy. So all that music, I love all that music. And I have 2 teenage kids that are very well into punk and indie and 90s rock. So all of that stuff is playing right now in my household every single day. So yeah. I play guitar, you know, electric guitar. My kids play electric guitar. So yeah, I mean, when I found out that this movie had all this music, it was like amazing, you know.
Yeah.
I was super lost. I was like, what is going on? And like the first version of the script also had like, you know, a bunch of different sort of older situations. See, like even though I'm talking about it, like I don't even know how to talk about it in a way that's like respectful. And like, and the way that I thought of this movie, by the way, when I first read the script was like it was an ode to the era of music. And so like I knew that I wasn't going to be able to meaningfully contribute to the film unless I had a better understanding of the music and like also the culture of the time, which was, you know, back then, right? Like what music you listen to defined you in a way that is just so foreign to my generation, or at least like myself. And like we pride ourselves in having eclectic and diverse taste in music, whereas like back then it was integral to your identity, and it was like one thing and one thing only. And like I remember eventually when I read the script talking to my dad about it, and he was like, oh yeah, I was a disco boy. And I was like, what does that mean? Like you know, like it was just like, yeah. So it was hard for sure because I had never really been exposed to any of that. But it was really cool because I was in a really angsty time of my life. So it kind of was like the perfect time to listen to that stuff and really feel it and feel the angst in it, because I was like right there with it.
I can speak as a producer. You know, I came on board Coast, I think in 2017, and the project came to me and my former business partner Alex Cirillo, who's also a producer on Coast, because we ran an incubator and production company called Big Vision Empty Wallet for 12 years, and Coast was one of the projects that was in our incubator. And you know, the first time I read the script, music was the thing that appealed to me so much, because I think in times of my life, whenever I'm going through something, I turn to music for answers. And I can point to different parts of my life, and there are specific songs that represent all of those all of those times, but punk was never the style of music that I listened to. But I can honestly say, and this is kind of nerdy, because now, of course, I've watched Coast like 200 times at least, and have listened to the music so much. But I love the soundtrack of Coast. And I feel like years from now, I'll hear these songs that are in this film that will, of course, become hits if they aren't already. And they'll represent this time in my life. And so that's something that's really exciting to me. And I mean, I think music is so important to all of us, and especially music that that has a message behind it, as so much of the songs in Coast do.
Yeah, when you talk about like music that resonates with parts of your life, I think of Joy Division, and you guys, I can't get over that you have these 2 great Joy Division songs in the soundtrack, and that you got them, which I don't think they're easy to get. I mean, you have a really good music supervisor to get that permission, and they must have, whoever's running that estate must have really appreciated what you're doing. But who's the Joy Division fan? Like who pulled that off?
Well, I think
Cindy.
Cindy put it in the script.
Yeah.
I mean, I was brand new to the music, really. I mean, Derek more so was into the music, but I was totally brand new. But I got to live it as if I were learning it for the first time. So got to fall in love as I did it. But you had far more.
Yeah. I knew I wasn't deep into the whole punk music scene, really. I mean, my punk music was listening to like, the Offspring in the 90s and Nirvana and stuff like that. And so this like 80s, like true, like Husker Du and like Dead Kennedys and stuff like that Cindy she was listening to, when she was growing up, and put it into the script. And that was what drove a lot of what these, and like Fatima was mentioning, like that was really like who you were and who you hung out with was this group. And the whole Red Barn was something that was a real place in that area in Santa Maria, and that Cindy would go to, and they'd have these punk shows. So we Jess and I moved to Santa Maria in 2017, I think, and we lived there for like 4 months. And we just did script research with Cindy, and we learned about the town, and we'd hang out and we'd watch music videos, and we'd go and visit places. And one of the things we did is we went to an Agent Orange concert at Slow Brew, the old Slow Brew, for anybody who's watching from San Luis Obispo. And that was like, for me, when I really kind of got it. Like I got what this is about, and it's like being in the mosh pit. Yeah. And I
always thought of mosh pits in a completely different way, and it's actually far more beautiful.
Yeah, cool. Because there's like this weird like collaboration thing that's happening, and people helping each other out, and there's like a lot of kind of like sharp, angry movements and stuff within it. But then there's also this like people are watching out for each other, and it's just the energy of it. I mean, it's very much like a similar thing, like the rave kind of the beat, and you're just like, it takes you over. It's just a different form of that, and so we tried to bring that experience to life in Coast and make it as real as possible, because the feeling of it was important. So like trying to throw real concerts and have real musicians in the movie and real performances was super important for us.
And at that concert, Dog Party opened for Agent Orange. So that's where we discovered them. It was kind of like hard to ignore them. They were so adorable.
Yeah. I mean, and they killed it. They rocked. They were amazing. So, so there was I think part of like, to segue into like a slightly similar topic is like, we were a little bit outsiders to it. Like we weren't coming at it through like being, from the punk rock like world. We had some more people in our crew who were a little bit more from
and your
that.
writer was
Like Cindy kind of lived and breathed it as a teenager. Our cinematographer DJ Harder was like big into that. Like he was, from Minnesota, and like loved Husker Du. And
we had our line producer Paul was
Paul Delapelle was a drummer for what's his name? The Dead Kennedy singer for Jello Biafra. Biafra. So like Paul knew, and and he would try to hold us, to task and be like,
Oh my God,
this
he was
is
so hard on
like
us.
this isn't real punk, and like ultimately we talk about it a lot. Like the sound of the film is deviated a little bit from like hardcore 80s, punk, and we kind of softened it up a bit in certain areas, and when we modernized it, it took a new shape, and we brought in other kind of sounds into it. But to me, I mean, that sort of it was the evolution of it in terms of like us as artists, and the cast and the actors we were working with, and just and everything. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. It was very much an organic, moving, breathing thing up until the weeks before our final version, when we were swapping out music because certain songs were like, we can't afford this one. The ones we really had to fight for, like Joy Division. So it was multiple year process to craft the music for the film.
I was
just going to say it's timeless. I mean, it feels like it could take place at any time in the last like almost 50 years.
Yeah, and that was intentional. I mean, really, like the fact that there's so much familiarity in it, in the sounds of it and the themes of it, but we really wanted to tell it for a different time and place and group and community and voice.
Well, and our composers love that music. They came from that world too, so that definitely helped.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I love how much you guys got into the spirit of Santa Maria, your setting, and what an interesting place that is. I mean, it's kind of, I lived there briefly when I covered the Michael Jackson trial like 15 years ago, and all these sort of New York and LA reporters were like, this is kind of a cow town. Like, this is kind of like a rural community. We weren't expecting this. But then it also has like people who are descendants of like the Japanese internment. There's a large Mexican-American population. There's like people from everywhere in Santa Maria. It's a really cool, interesting town. And I feel like you get into that history very skillfully through Eduardo's character, who gives the students an assignment about sort of their backgrounds and who they are. Eduardo, and you're great in it. I got to tell everybody else how good they were. You were great. You were so freaking charismatic. I wish you'd been one of my high school teachers. You're too young. But how did you handle that responsibility of like making that character like so endearing and such a kind of, a surrogate for a lot of ideas that the movie packed in?
Well, I always, when I get asked about that, I always think about that fine line between, being a teacher and not becoming one more of the students, like being relatable, try to be relatable to them, but at the same time, have that respect that a teacher should have, So I just thought about my teachers, the ones that I respected and that I looked up to, and try to mold it, based on them, a couple of them. And then there were the other teachers that I did not respect at all, and that were like idiots, and I wouldn't think about them. I would think about the good ones, about the good teachers. And always keeping that sense of, how do you call it? Trying to be not their friend, but somebody they can trust, So all those thoughts I had in mind, so it would work, and I think it did. Hopefully, it did.
Yeah. Fatima, how did you get to know your character? I mean, the whole movie hangs on her and her changes and her evolution. How did you really get to like understand who this character is and feel comfortable in her skin?
Well, that was also multiple year process. I would say Cindy does a pretty remarkable job in the script of like she did the heavy lifting. And I think it's really important to say that, because like to not give credit to her writing would be a shame. She's like a remarkable writer. So the picture of Abby that I like came to the table with that first version of the script was already a pretty strong mold. I would say I knew that she was powerful. I knew that she was stubborn, and I knew that she was, like just going through a lot of that transition period, questioning and angst. And like I kind of said, I was honestly going through so much of that myself. Like I felt a lot older than a lot of kids my own age. I'd grown up on sets, right? So I was more comfortable talking to people 30 years older than me than I was to my own classmates for a lot of my life. And I was constantly like, what am I going to do? And where am I going? And, you know, I'm an East Coaster, but I love the West Coast. Like there are a million different like ways that I was like freaking out about things, because you always find things to freak out about when you're a teenager. And, then on top of that, like the work, Jess and Derek really, really were like unforgiving. And every single time I made a decision, we're like, okay, but think about why you're making that decision. Is that the reason you want to be behind every decision that you're making? Like every time we'd run through scenes, it was so much of like thinking and analysis just as much as it was just feelings and going through the motions. Everything was very intentional, but similarly natural. So I think, yeah, the environment of the set itself really kind of allowed me to leave the finishing touches. And I mean, the amazing women that I got to work with, right? Mia, like it was so cool because I looked up to her so much, and like she was already kind of like a bad bitch, you know? So I'd like kind of look at her on set and be like, okay, like how would she do this sometimes, you know? And it was really cool because there were like so many different personalities in each one of us as girls, and I would honestly tap into little bits of each one of them sometimes, and it was really nice to be able to do that.
Okay, but you weren't afraid to mosh, and I was. I was 100% frightened because, you know, what my relationship with moshing is none. So I don't know. You know, I do have value my spatial awareness. I guess now more because of COVID. I don't know, but that was, you know, you were like fearless. So I at one point I remember having a little talk with myself, and I was like, get it together. Get a character. Your character's not afraid. Like, so yeah, no, I think we all looked up to each other. It was we uplifted everyone around us.
Your character, Mia, has all these secrets that you're carrying around. How do you play that? I mean, do you just play it scene by scene, or do you think of sort of go into the interior of like, who is this character that she keeps all this stuff inside?
I mean, I think women are secretive creatures. We carry a lot of secrets, whether we want to admit them to ourselves or others. But obviously, you know, it being a movie and not a show, you have the luxury of knowing where your journey is going to end. So it's like Fatima was saying, it's all about intention and kind of having the same intention throughout each scene. Yeah, and it just makes it so much. It makes it more fun because, you know, no one is just you know, just one thing. We're many different things. So the secrets just made it all more enjoyable.
Was this a fun set? I mean, there's so many young people there. You're all like the same age. Like, I know there's not a whole lot to do in Santa Maria, but did you guys like just have fun making this when you were done shooting?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
For starters, we all lived in a house together.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, true. We did. I forgot about that.
Like the whole production?
With Debbie?
No. All the girls lived together.
Well, I thought it was just you and Fatima and me, wasn't it?
No, it was you.
Amy was at home.
Oh no, Mia was there too, right?
You, Mia, Andres, my mom.
Oh right. That's crazy.
Let me remind you, half of our production were night shoots, and we were like there into the very early morning. So yes, it was a lot of hard work. So when you weren't working, you had to like laugh and have fun or sleep.
Yeah, I preferred it. It was like I'd had a few night shoots before, and they were awful. But this one was so much better for some reason. I think we had Dewey's trailer that we would go in because it was freezing. But it was just, you know, camaraderie. You really tend to bond at 3 a.m. When
I would be on set and I would be getting all these texts about what was happening in the makeup room, and I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, no.
Or they feel this, they feel that, and I'd be like, okay. Somebody else read my text. Okay.
Yeah, no. It was an extremely fun set. Delirious at times, but definitely fun.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's crazy also not to give a shout out to the locations that we were able to visit, right? Like, I have such a distinct and special memory about that, like bonfire night, because we had gotten there before the sun had set. And, you know, we had to set up before that. So we literally got to watch the sunset over this beach as we're all getting ready and doing like final looks for the second it's dark enough for it to be a night scene, you know? And like, I don't know, we were able to go to the dunes, right? Like, and that experience, and so much more than just the dunes, right? For filming, like, we got to experience a place that we had never been before with each other, and like, that's really beautiful. And you don't always get to do something that special with a cast when you're in studio. So the location itself, and I think that the film does a really beautiful job of like paying tribute to Santa Maria, because like it kind of spoke for itself. And because we were doing night shoots, like no one was looking for nightlife, right? We weren't looking for clubs or anything. We were just, you know, we'd go home and we'd sleep, you know. So we like our interactions, I think like the integration of the local community as well in the crew and in the cast, like it made it so that we all felt like one big family in this place. And even though we were discovering it, some of us it was like the place they'd been going to for 20 something years, we got to share in that together. So
yeah. I mean, as you're recalling all this, I am just thinking about what professionals the two of you and you know, all of our actors were to put up with that stuff. I mean, not that it was like, you know, you were all pros, really. You know, I mean, we made all of our days, you know, we got through, we pulled like long hours, and you know, you're always ready to work and show up and give your all. And
we had Dewey. Dewey was our medic and our set therapist, I guess, right?
Yeah. And he was taking the trailer,
and he also
around
drove the trailer
around, and he was our guide to the dunes. Because didn't you all go like in with
in the dunes?
We like drove a dune buggy.
Not
like we, like someone else drove, and we have some awesome pictures of that, by the way. Like, it's really
fun
because it's not like covered or anything. It's literally just a buggy, so we're like all like hanging out the sides of this buggy. It was really
a hard location.
I think at one point I was like, let me out to walk. I need to walk.
And how beautiful the other one. I was remembering the one with Eduardo when we're sitting down and we're just like, we're having that conversation there, and you sit and you look, and it's just like, just miles and miles, or, you know, acres and acres of just beautiful, ripe, like,
you mean the location that we found
land.
10 minutes before we shot there?
That's what I'm saying. And it wasn't even planned.
But as Eduardo was speaking about yourself as a teacher, like, you did all of that. You inspired, you found trust all in that scene, found the right moments to just hold space and listen. Like, it was such a gorgeous scene.
And to Eduardo's credit and to the whole collaboration, like, you know, we almost cut that scene. And he fought for it. And he came, you know, in fact, we did cut that scene. Like, we're like, sorry, Eduardo, I know we just really can't do it. And he was like, okay. And I think it was like the next day he came back and he was like, can we talk about that scene? And he made a pitch for like, I just really think that, you know, we need to see the end of Mr. Sosa's story.
Yeah.
It's really important to understand, you know, how, like, why he's there and how he connects with her and gives, and he's like, you know what, you're right. And
I don't want to spoil it, but that he's like the soul of the town in a way. Like,
yeah,
I love that scene.
Gorgeous scene.
I mean, look, the film is so crazy if we start thinking back about like all the challenges that come up, and we're like, we almost cut Cassie, and like that's one of the most beautiful scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it was a huge learning curve in the sense of like, everyone's going to impose something of a formula on you, but you have to like really hold the gems, and the actors knew, you all knew what was like, no, I need to do this.
Yeah, I mean, and like, it was a long edit too, to pivot to a whole other topic, but like, it was a long edit. And I mean, one of the things I discovered with the Santa Maria and the way Cindy wrote was there was always true stories. There's like true material to go back to. Like, what did they actually do in Santa Maria? Like, how did this actually work? And it was similar with the actors. Like when we got ourselves all tangled up in the scene with the edit, the thing that would ultimately work was like, okay, what were they actually doing? Like what was Fatima's intention? Like let's go back and watch through the whole thing. And
I'm so many times I would go, she got on the first take. What are we doing?
Right. No, exactly. And then
like, what are we doing? It's there.
So that was part of the, there was the discovery of it. And yeah, it helps when you have a good cast.
Yeah.
I just want to give credit to the producer here because, the movie doesn't get made unless everybody sort of comes together and makes it work. So how did it, you talked about this coming out of an incubator that you ran, Danny, which I love the name of, by the way.
Big Vision, Empty Wallet. Yeah, it was a great name. I in like we phased out the company last year. And Alex and I are working on different things, but I still have such an attachment to that name because it's so true.
So how did you guys first meet and how did you get this movie made? I mean, I know Jessica was working on it for a while, getting it off the ground.
Yeah.
What do you think was the point when it went from like an idea to like, we're making this movie?
I think when it was in our incubator, there still wasn't a shoot date set, but I think that there's something about, and I've experienced this in other projects, when you already have some cast attached and they're young, there is this deadline of like, this does have to film before the young caster are 40 years old. so there was this like kind of deadline, and then I know that after the incubator ended, it was like the incubator was fall of 2017, I think, and then you guys called Alex and I maybe like 6 months later, and you were like, we're setting shoot dates and we're just going to go, and we all have to go out and get the money, and we spent the next few months. I know I see people writing in comments, hey, 40 is young. I agree. We spent the next few months after that going out and getting the money. And then I'll drop a secret on this panel, which is that this film started shooting without the full budget raised. And, because of that, we had several producers on this project, and I wasn't able to be on set most of the time when the film was shooting in California because I was still in New York raising money. And we would be, but I was on call 24 hours a day. And I was receiving messages at all hours of the day of, what we needed money for, what needed to happen. Producing remotely, like, really wasn't a term that people used until COVID. But Alex and I mean, this shot very much pre-COVID, and Alex and I were very much in New York producing remotely, especially the Red Barn scene was something that we were super involved in. And then the New York part of the shoot, we were there in person for, and that presented its own challenges. The New York part are all of the hospital scenes with Melissa Leo. So those New York scenes were filmed right after shooting in Santa Maria wrapped. And Jessica and our DP, DJ Harder, and the AC all flew to New York on the red eye, and we started shooting pretty much right away. And so while they were shooting in California, we were prepping those New York scenes, and finding a hospital to film in was really difficult, as you can imagine. And especially because it needed to be close to where Melissa Leo lived. And it basically left us with like one option. And luckily we were able to convince this hospital administrator to let us shoot there. So it all came together in the end. But certainly this was a long process.
Yeah. I mean, it was the kind of thing where it was like, we were working, we had a team that was working and everyone believed in the project, but everybody wanted to hold out for like some sort of equity piece, some sort of who had foreign sales value. At this point, that all seems so silly, but it's a model that works. And we just got to a point where like we have our cast, and I remember going, who can we go to? And that's when we were like, Danny and Alex, we got to go to them. We got to, and they said yes right away, because we decided we're going to make this for a micro budget and just make it happen.
You don't want to say what that micro budget is, right?
No. It grew. Budget grew.
No, I know. But for filmmakers watching, I mean, I think
it's not even such a micro budget. It's not a micro budget.
A film, yeah, it's not.
I just ask because sometimes people see a movie on a screen and go, oh, everybody involved in this is obviously a multimillionaire, and that's what you have to be in order to make a movie. And that's not really true. You just have to figure out how to get the funding and get the movie made, which is a huge, major struggle and a lot of work. And it doesn't come to anybody easy. And
I think another piece of that too, though, is finding the skilled people that can do it. You know, like we couldn't, I mean, thank God DJ held this camera with a very small team, you know, and he just had he could move with the camera as if he were the camera, thank God. And he just had such a strong understanding of story. Like we couldn't have been able to do it that way without him. And there were many other people who kept adding to the team who were like DJ. So
I just want to mention to commenters, if anybody has a question, feel free to throw it out because we're wrapping up pretty soon. But I also wanted to ask y'all, are there any questions that you've been meaning to ask each other? Is there anything that you have been meaning to say to each other? Anything that should come out now?
I wanted to ask everyone what their experience was like finally watching the film on a big screen with an audience, because that's something that we actually ended up being able to do. You know, after so long of thinking that maybe we wouldn't be able to do that, it was so nice that in April we were able to have a premiere in LA and a premiere in New York and other screenings. So how did I know for me it felt wonderful, but how did it feel for everyone else?
So actually I think my first time was at the Santa Barbara Film Festival on a big screen. And it was so cool because, I mean, I'm a huge movie buff. So like the idea of being at a drive-in and watching yourself in a movie at a drive-in is kind of insane. And I don't know if that was just because of COVID, but I guess, you know, silver lining. And it was amazing. I mean, it was also really cool to have like the sound coming through your car. So it was like listening to music in your car almost. And I mean, everyone just really put, I don't even want to say 100%, like 10,000% hard work into it. And it was just so cool to see it finally, you know, pay off. And just honest, I think I shed a tear or two. And it was just, you know, so many years and so many beautiful moments that just finally we were able to witness.
Yeah, I had a really, really emotional experience personally. I went to the premiere with she's practically my little sister and my best friend from college. It was like my first time doing something like that really on my own without my parents. Like since I've been in college, I haven't, you know, done any filming. So it was like so interesting to do that on my own with friends. But anyway, and I was sitting in that movie holding each of their hands and like using their hands to wipe tears because like there were so many scenes that I remembered. I just had such a visceral experience, like remembering what it was like to be there in that moment and then to see what it turned into. And particularly the hard nights, like, you know, of course, you know, the scenes that you feel good about and the scenes that you feel strong about, like no matter what, you're proud of your performance and that's what it is. And hopefully as an actor, you aspire that like every single take is like a performance that you're proud of. But like, that's not always the case when you're like kind of sleep deprived and loopy and like, okay, like I just had my 18th birthday on set. I was like going through a whole other like, am I really an adult crisis now? So I don't know. I think it was really emotional and really, really special. But more than anything else, I was just like in awe. Like it was just so beautiful, even independent of like the performances itself. But if you didn't even understand the language and you didn't even understand the story and you were just sitting there watching it, like it's gorgeous, and that took a lot of people to get it to be like that. So
For me was I watched it the first time in Santa Barbara at the drive-in, but I actually enjoyed it more here in LA, because the first time in Santa Barbara I was with my family, with my 2 kids and my wife, and I was like just focused on what are they thinking, are they liking it, are they enjoying it. So I actually watched it for myself until it came here to LA, until we had that screening, and I don't know how to describe it. I just thought it was wonderful as well. It's a great feeling to see what you work so hard for, right? See it on the big screen, and also, I believe there were. I thought the photography was incredible. I don't know if it was because the first time I watched it in a drive-through, but in a drive-in. I'm sorry, but it's the second time in a dark room, which is a movie theater. It looks so beautiful. Oh my God, I was so, and DJ was there, and I was like, dude, you did an amazing job. It's beautiful just to watch, Santa Maria, and it looked incredible. The look was incredible, and of course the rest, our work and everything put together. I just loved it.
We have to give a shout out to our colorist too, because she really brought it home. Marcy Robinson, that's her last name, right?
Yeah. No, it actually was a difference between the festival and the premiere. We did our final color pass because I graded the one for the festival, and then we got somebody who actually does it for a living to do it, who knows what she's doing, to give the final touch on it. And really grateful we were able to make that work with Marcy and Nice Shoes. And yeah, those final touches, they go a long way.
They go a long way.
And finishing the day for night shots, like for all the nights, we actually had day for night visual effects shots, which I highly recommend you don't do. If there are any filmmakers watching this, don't do day for night.
Or don't share the film until you finish the day for night.
It's harder than you think. But I mean, if you can do it, hats off to you, because it is really cool. And sometimes you have to, but it's hard.
Well, at the New York screening, someone actually stood up, who was not connected with the film, stood up and said, what a great job you guys did on Day for Night. So, I know it was a lot of hard work, but it came out. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask Danny, what was it like for you to see the film on a big screen? And also, George Kringas, I hope I'm saying that right, asks, will there be a soundtrack?
Well, I'll answer that first, which is hopefully there will be a soundtrack. There will be some sort of soundtrack, and we're trying to get that together for the fall. But we actually also have a music video that we're going to be releasing in the next couple of weeks for the song Problem Child. And I can't wait for all of you to see it, because I think it's really, really great. And I'm really proud of the way that music video came out. And the film's editor, Angelica Hester, edited the music video too, and it's really great. How did I feel seeing it in the theater? So I saw it in the drive-in also at Santa Barbara, which was also my first time at a drive-in. And because I grew up in New York, so I just had never been to a drive-in before. And I enjoyed that so much. I felt like that screening had such a great energy, and I loved everyone honking their horns at the parts that they liked. I thought that was just so much fun. And but seeing it in the theater in LA and in New York, I think what was really rewarding for me is hearing the questions at the Q&As afterwards. And I could tell from the types of questions that people were asking that they were so engaged, and that the film was really meaning something to them. And at the New York screening, there was a young girl who asked a question, and it just I felt like it meant so much that that she was really watching and taking in the film and had such a really thoughtful. I don't remember what the question was, but I remember that it was so thoughtful. So that's what was so great about experiencing it with everyone.
They're kicking us out of this virtual room. Thanks everybody for watching. Sorry to go a little long. You guys are too interesting. I don't know what to say. Where can people go watch Coast right now?
Okay, so I'm going to put a banner at the bottom of the screen. You can go to coastthefeature.com, and on our homepage, it has all of the screening links to the platforms where it's currently available. And if you're not watching this live, but you're watching this later on, it still applies because we're going to keep updating those links. So please, please go watch Coast. Right now it's available on Amazon and Vudu and Google and Apple TV and a couple of other places. Please feel free to connect with us on Instagram. I can put our Instagram at the bottom now. It's at Coast the Film. So that's where we're the most active. If you have any questions or comments for us, or just want to post a picture of yourself watching the film. So thank you so much for tuning into this. And thank you so much, Tim, for hosting.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll see everyone soon.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.